Unlike any computer game you've experienced before, King's Quest is an adventure not told just in words and pictures, but brought to life through the use of colorful graphics, animation, and sound. Sound? Sound is really what you want to go with here? A world of high fantasy, perilous quests, and legendary adventure. A world where courage triumphs over adversity, where bravery is rewarded. Find the magic treasure. Put on your thinking cap as you search the countryside in the days when knights were bold and brave. Become Sir Graham and travel through the lands of myth and magic. You must recover the 3 great treasures to return Daventry to its former glory. The road you must travel is long and perilous. It is beset by many dangerous beings. Go now, Sir Graham, and in the words of King Edward, may you return victorious.
Dead king, let's sit on the throne.
Ask me how it's going.
Story of my life.
So it's kind of a complicated history that Amiga owners have with Sierra. Not only could the Amiga do this Apple II engine, we could have done King's Quest V in 1985. Could have done King's Quest VI, looking gorgeous and running smooth. However good you think Sierra was, they could have been better, and it's disappointing. Nevertheless, every time I died, I couldn't help but laugh. History loves these games, as do I. History loves Roberta, but I really think she could have done better for a husband. It's never too late to trade up, Roberta. What do you think of my map, by the way?
Originally released as a launch title for the IBM PC Junior. That's what they say. Anyway, the Junior came out in February or March of '84. A very questionable source from Wiki says this came out in May, but multiple magazines couldn't be bothered to review this until December. I'm gonna place this fall of '84, September or October-ish. Must have been delayed. I'm also gonna say that at minimum it was developed simultaneously with the Apple II because they were both released around the same time. Developed by Sierra, although published on the Junior by IBM themselves, most other versions were published by Sierra. Had design from the single most noteworthy woman in computer game development at the time, Roberta Williams. Today we are covering King's Quest. Ports would be released for the Apple II, although again, wouldn't call that one a port myself. It was really the Tandy 1000 version which made this game a success. There were ports to standard DOS, the Atari ST, Amiga, Macintosh through a third party in 1989, the Master System, and finally in 1990 it was remade through the SCI game engine. We'll be playing it here via the original AGI version on the Amiga. In terms of the Amiga release, it's in that difficult to pinpoint area for me. The first concrete mention of it being out is from Questbusters in May of '87, but there are murmurs of it going back as a launch title many times throughout 1986. It's mentioned, but if we're going to be charitable with Questbusters' turnaround time, could have been out for Christmas of 1986, but also could have been delayed until early '87. Now, as we begin to traverse some story by talking to King Edward, I'd like to celebrate my much delayed, though likely unsought, 10th anniversary on YouTube by welcoming some friends.
A long, long time ago, when unicorns still roamed the forests, and the merfolk still dwelt in the shallow waters, frequented by men, there ruled in the kingdom of Daventry, King Edward and his lovely queen.
The people of Daventry were prosperous and happy, and everywhere peace reigned. But the king and queen were sad because they were childless. They had no son to inherit the throne, nor a daughter to gladden their hearts.
One bright sunny day, King Edward the Benevolent and his queen were walking in the castle garden, when suddenly before them appeared a powerful sorcerer.
I know your problem and can cast a spell that will bring you a child.
Oh, great sorcerer, if you can help us, we will be everlastingly grateful.
My payment will not be so great. All I ask in return is the mahogany-framed mirror that hangs in your private chamber.
The sorcerer's words gave them pause, for that mirror was priceless. The royal couple used it to foretell the weather for planting and harvest, as had the kings and queens before them. What the sorcerer desired was indeed valuable. The king and queen retired to their chamber to consult the magic mirror.
More from our prodigious guests later. Now, King's Quest is an adventure game of the legendary variety, for it marked a change. Prior to King's Quest, you had two types of adventure games: all text and text with flavor graphics. The static graphic variety, also pioneered by Roberta Williams via Mystery House. Here we control an animated character within a graphical world, though the playing interface, as you can see, is still firmly influenced by the first text adventures. Look field, I don't understand field. Look farm, look crop, look plants will finally tell you of the plump carrots. Get carrot? Well, you can't do that from here. Climb down? No. Jump water. Read note that's directly in front of me on a table? You don't have it. Now you can put on a ring, but that doesn't do anything. Use ring? No, you gotta rub the ring, which is kinda unavoidable when you put it on in the first place. The text parser is a little maddening, but it's fine. As Sierra continued to use it through 1990, it would get better. But even here, you get used to the crap factor, and you might even start preferring it to pointing and clicking. Look, when you win a game with a text parser with little to no help, you feel damn good. Family Computing, January 1985. Yeah, not even Charlie Chaplin is gonna save you. Growing by leaps and bounds, the PC Junior, discontinued 2 months later. 84's finest. 1984 was a superb year for games. Well, maybe you should tell that to the Nintendo fanboys who think Mario saved gaming. King's Quest, an arcade / role-playing adventure. How many completely different genres are you going to claim this as? Here is a state-of-the-art adventure with such innovative features as animated graphics, joystick-controlled movement, scrolling screens. Yeah, as far as I'm aware, Sierra never had a single adventure game with scrolling screens. This is the first of a new generation. Well, they got one thing right. First, there was the text adventure. Then a housewife named Roberta invented the text / graphic adventure. But the pictures didn't move much, and players frequently groaned about the lack of action. Never one to rest on her laurels, Williams has planned and executed something new, a semi-animated text graphic adventure in which the lead character walks across the scrolling screen. There is no scrolling. The system isn't perfected yet, but where else can a character on screen move behind an object to hide? The pace is not always as fast as that of other contemporary action games, but this is the first of a new genre, and Roberta Williams is to be applauded for making such a giant leap forward while still retaining the charming, challenging techniques that characterize her other adventures. Not for every taste, text graphic adventures require patience, puzzle-solving skills, and plenty of time, but the feeling of accomplishment you get when you actually finish one of Williams' games is outstanding. And the readers of Family Computing, a couple years later, placing it along with King's Quest II as the 4th best game. And despite Family Computing's lack of knowledge on how scrolling works, as well as their questionable genre characterizations, let alone the absurdity of touting joystick controls in a game like this, I started with them for a reason. Collectively speaking, that's the overall impression of the time period. It's a first, and they all knew it, but it's not perfected yet. But for those who might be predisposed, you might love it. And, by the way, not once did I ever touch the joystick. You kinda need to type in this game, so use the keyboard. As we meet our end to the dragon, let's talk about the desk. Way more funny than should be allowed with such a primitive-looking game. I can't really speak for the Mystery House engine days, but if there's one defining characteristic of Sierra Adventures and most who followed in their wake, it's the humor. And really, you're either gonna love it or hate it. I love it, but I do wish they would have taken themselves a little more seriously, occasionally. In these early titles, the humor is largely achieved through your deaths, and that's not for everyone. For those who aren't chuckling, I think the deaths kind of feel like a slap in the face. And here it's only for the humor, whereas later games would give you clues in the death text. In this one, I would say your best opportunity for learning is by paying attention to your score. We used a dagger to kill the dragon, but our score went down. I didn't need a clue book to realize there was another way. There's even alternatives within those other options. This bucket can be retrieved in a much easier way above ground.
King Edward and his wife gazed into the mirror's depths and saw a young princely figure with a gold crown upon his head. Imagining the youth to be the son they yearned for, the royal couple gladly bestowed the mirror upon the sorcerer.
The months passed, and the queen did not conceive a child. For the first time in 400 years, Daventry lost the harvest to an early autumn rainstorm. The king and queen wept. With famine came the dreaded plague, and the queen was stricken.
Opening doors to a new dimension. Computer Entertainer, December of 1984, number 9, top sellers. The year in review, May. We learned that Amiga is working on a high-performance personal computer for release later in the year. August. The phones ring off the hooks again as Jack Trammell puts a stop to everything as he takes over Atari. September. Atari made a tentative agreement with Amiga for the computer they had been developing. However, Commodore moved in. Early holiday season reports indicate that the earlier problems with PC Junior have been forgotten and is beginning to sell extremely well. Discontinued. 3 months later. King's Quest is the most visually dazzling adventure we've ever seen on an Apple computer. Playing the role of Sir Graham, the player's task is to recover the 3 lost treasures of the Kingdom of Daventry. While the outline of this adventure plot may sound typical for such a game, there is nothing ordinary about King's Quest. The incredibly beautiful, fully animated graphics are the first thing to grab your attention. The hero moves realistically within a 3-dimensional environment. Only in Sierra's Egos was a 2D cartoon going behind an object ever considered 3D. Roberta Williams and her crew at Sierra are to be congratulated for a truly outstanding piece of work that utilizes the double high-res graphic capabilities of the 128K Apple to the maximum. Speaking of the Apple II, how about some comparisons? Double high-res on the Apple II is a misnomer. It gave it 16 colors, which looks incredible for that machine, but the resolution remained 140 by 192. It actually crops out a bit of the picture on the Apple II, which would mean that this actually was designed for the PC Junior. So correction, it's 160 by 200 being blown up into 320 by 200 on the Amiga. Astoundingly from Sierra, forever champions of the lazy port, the Amiga version has been altered from DOS. Mostly in the colors and the interface, the colors are much brighter and realistic on the Amiga. Where a mouse would be useful in a game like this is in the menus, and the Amiga has that. Then there's the sound, which of course sucks, period, but is best on the Amiga. It also ran faster, 7 megahertz on the Amiga, 4.7 on DOS. I would say that you would have to claim the Amiga version as definitive. I mean, it is the same on the Atari ST and Apple II GS, but that Sierra even lifted a finger is amazing. They probably fired that porting team. Overall, I would say the graphics are charming in a fairy tale, childish kind of way. For the Apple II, it's amazing, and even for 84 standards, considering not that many people were designing for the Commodore 64 yet, it's above average. Although to an extent, I think you could make the argument that we were going backwards in graphics, at least in terms of close-ups. These here are from 84, and Mickey was also from Sierra, but of course we are reviewing this on the Amiga, late 86, early 87, and these graphics are bad. If I can eyeball your artwork and recreate it myself, you might need to hone your skills. Compute! A year before the PC Junior was announced, IBM asked Sierra to create a game that would show off the new computer's color graphics capabilities. 18 months later, Williams and a team of 6 programmers and artists had created King's Quest at a cost over $700,000. Cost and fee are two completely different things. That's how much IBM paid them, not how much it cost. In addition to the graphics for each room, there is a set of logical statements. They work sort of like a group of if-then statements in BASIC. If has goat 0 and object hit edge 14 and edge object hit 1 and goat gone 0 and show caret 0, then assign goat room 11, erase 14. If it looks and smells like BASIC, then it might be BASIC. Ken and Roberta Williams, the husband and wife founders of Sierra Online, live in the foothills of the Sierra Mountains in a real stone castle, complete with spiral stairs, 3 hot tubs, and a racquetball court. So that's where IBM's money went. Sierra expands number of titles and systems. Winnie the Pooh will be Sierra's first program for Amiga, spurred by demand from Amiga owners and development funding from Walt Disney Productions. Truly, it is my desire that you do not take what I'm about to say as bashing Sierra. These games are objectively important, but I must take a stand against the false narrative created by Sierra themselves and perpetuated by fans, which unquestionably gives them more credit than they deserve. Text adventures were the most popular genre for computer games, but graphical games existed. Most of Ken Williams' personal programming credits include clones of Pac-Man and other arcade games. He took the next logical step and added graphics, and I would say objectively that was at the expense of the text. And after that, you milked the engine for 10 games until IBM paid you $1 million to take the next logical step. Sierra could have very well died with Infocom if IBM hadn't come knocking. They needed Walt Disney to pay them to make a game for the Amiga. 16 games based off this engine. They didn't make a 320 by 200 16-color EGA game until late 88. King's Quest V was their first VGA game with no text parser in late 1990. Crediting themselves as pioneers in gaming music, but they used the PC speaker exclusively until King's Quest IV 88, as if the Amiga and 64 and NES hadn't done it years prior. It wasn't some forward-looking vision which had them start making music. It was an agreement with Roland and Adlib to sell those cards direct to consumers. Ken Williams' vision for sale by the highest bidder. They deserve credit, but visionaries they were not. It was all about the money.
On the 4th day of the Queen's illness, a diminutive figure pushed his way between the legs of the castle guards.
I have traveled a great distance to bring relief to your dear wife. This powerful root known only to dwarves will cure any plague.
The dwarf leaned over the queen and touched the root to her lips. Her eyes fluttered open, and she smiled at Edward.
Ask any reward for this miraculous gift, O small one. I ask in repayment the shield left you by your father when he died. Ask again, little man. You do not appear to value your wife's life, Highness. Come back. I'll give you the shield.
The Queen partook of the root, but to no avail. She worsened. and died.
Let's get into my favorite part of King's Quest, this bowl. We found it earlier, noticed there was a word on the bottom which said fill. We deduced for ourselves that we should take this bowl to some water and fill it, where it then became an endless supply of stew. Immediately thinking of the rundown house and the family which might utilize that bowl, I checked my map and was on my way. Those are the kinds of puzzles I love. It's not the inventory that we have to piece together, it's the world that we must pay attention to. Draw a map and make notes, and you will figure out most of this game on your own. Non-linear and wonderful exploration. I've seen people criticize the spawn rate of some important creatures, but if you're mapping, you will be going into those areas multiple times, and they'll pop up. Exception, this bitch of a witch, which I had to look up the solution to because she's inside her house 95% of the time.
Many years passed, and the king was very lonely. One day, while out riding, Edward came upon a pack of wolves tearing at the lower limbs of a big tree. The wolves scattered to reveal a beautiful young woman. She descended regally.
I thank you for the rescue, kind sirs. I am the Princess Dahlia Cumberland. I owe you my life and my heartfelt gratitude.
In due time, Edward asked Dahlia to marry him, and she accepted. On the night before the wedding, when the air was thick with toasts and merriment, Princess Dahlia bid Edward good night. He never noticed her hand extracting the ring of keys. The royal treasurer approached the king with alarming news.
He had discovered the treasury door standing open, with the king's own key in the lock. The Princess Dahlia had been inside, holding a small chest of gold. The princess' bright laughter changed to a witch's cackle as her form grew old and withered.
When the king heard the news, he wept in despair. That chest was magic, and the last great treasure remaining in Daventry.
Via Ahoy in September of '85, which is when the Amiga was released, King's Quest II Romancing the Throne is, to our knowledge, the first game announced for Commodore's Amiga computer. Well, I guess unlike IBM and Atari and somehow even Disney, Commodore didn't pay up, and I'm with Commodore. Amazing computing where King's Quest gets a portion of the cover. The silence is deafening and the tension's so thick you can't cut it with a sword. The torchlight casts its sputtering illumination about 60 feet ahead of you. You decide to head for the door when suddenly out of nowhere you are attacked by a band of wandering trolls. Sound like fun? Well, many people think so. Since the advent of personal computers, adventuring has been a part of the software scene. Adventure is usually credited as the first adventure game, aka Colossal Cave. For some time, text adventures ruled the day. Games like Wizard and the Princess and Ulysses and the Golden Fleece, both from Sierra Online, stormed onto the scene. In 1981, a company called Surtex took the gaming world on its ear with a program called Wizardry. That's an RPG, and if we're going to include those, where's Temple of Apshai, which came before those Sierra games? There's a third limb of this tree, and you'd be surprised at its source. The ill-fated PC Junior. IBM commissioned Sierra to write a game called King's Quest. A break so we can discuss the single most frustrating part of this game. The only clues given to you in the manual is to map everything and to get reacquainted with your fairy tales. It's how I knew to push the witch into her stove, Hansel and Gretel. Well, guess my name Songstryss here was pretty obviously Rumpelstiltskin. But it didn't work, so I thought, Sierra are bastards, do it backwards. Fuming, and just to prove myself wrong, I did the whole alphabet backwards. And it still didn't work, so I looked it up, and Roberta can't spell. So even if it had just been Rumpelstiltskin, I still would have gotten it wrong because Roberta couldn't be bothered to look it up or to offer alternative spellings. And yeah, you don't need the beans, and I outright refused to use them, but that's the kind of stuff which makes you hate a game because you were right. And until I actually won, I kinda was hating it. Actually, King's Quest is so much better of a game in retrospect. I'm talking about right after you turn off the computer, because the ending kinda sucks too. But you turn the thing off and you realize what you've accomplished, and you end up loving it. Don't these guidelines apply to almost all games in one way or another? We think the answer lies pretty deep within ourselves. Seldom notice psychological factors affect us here. The same drive that pushes us to excel at our jobs or in school is at work during adventure gameplay. We all want to discover new things, see new sights, and reach new heights of achievement. Adventure games give us opportunities to excel in ways otherwise available to only a select few. We explore, conquer, and achieve on a nearly unimaginable scale. That hits. The graphic scenes, objects, and characters are very blocky. The program uses graphics that were designed on other machines and then ported to the Amiga. It would have added quite a bit if they'd used better graphics to take advantage of the Amiga's capabilities. If Graham walks in front of anything red, the middle of his body disappears since his shirt is red. When he steps in front of anything yellow, his face disappears. I'll take the yellow face over the god-awful red ones. Once you've solved most adventure games, you'll never play them again. In King's Quest Adventures, you can go back to different situations and see if there's a better way to solve a puzzle. While King's Quest 1 and 2 are not very sophisticated and don't have very complex graphics, they will still offer enjoyment to novice adventurers. Any descriptors for text parsers should never include novice. Sierra Online. They've never been known for their Amiga products. In fact, they've been dinged pretty good by Amiga fans. The Bandito figures that some of that criticism must have stung, because in the latest issue of their in-house newsletter, Sierra Prexy Ken Williams shoots his mouth off about the Amiga market. He remarks that if you want to play games, you should either buy an IBM clone or a color Macintosh. The Bandito would like to know just what reality-altering substances he's been exposed to. But the Bandito understands what Ken really meant. If you want to play a Sierra game, you should buy a Mac instead of an Amiga. Given the quality of their Amiga product, this makes perfect sense. Well, I think I'd hold off on that Mac comment. Without meaning to pick on Sierra Online, I must say that neither the Mac versions of its King's Quest games nor its new Police Quest games impress me very much at all. The problem is that its programmers asked not what they could do for the Mac, but simply what the Mac could do for them. Muddied, miscolored, awkward. Totally laughable. Fast-forwarding to King's Quest 6. You read that correctly. Sierra, which quit the Amiga market last year in the wake of Conquests of the Longbow, has quietly re-entered it. It's the first Amiga conversion the company hasn't done itself. Hooray! Yippee! Yahoo! I hope King's Quest 6 felt like the slap in the face it was meant to be. They didn't actually farm it out. Revolution paid them to make it on the Amiga. It's always the same theme with Sierra. And yes, it's what all of their games should have been on this system. Now, King's Quest V was done by Sierra, and it's actually gorgeous, despite the muddy claims that come online from people who have clearly never seen an Amiga in real life on a CRT. It's quite sluggish, although playable on NTSC hardware, but what makes 6 run so well is that Revolution understood what blitter and sprites were. You didn't need pure megahertz on the Amiga. It's all just sad, because at least to some extent, it could have been done in 1985. Now, there is a better version of King's Quest 1 *. It uses their later EGA SCI engine, which on my Amiga setup looks damn good because I got the choice of either an RGB or composite monitor, and composite blends those dithering colors so well. Add the music, which brought tears to my eyes, and I seriously considered reviewing that one over this, but in the end went historical. There's also the Master System version, which takes some getting used to with the controls, but if you've got the Master System or the Genesis, it's worth playing. And finally, there's a VGA Fan remake, which I couldn't stand. Perhaps if you turn off the music and sound, but it simply isn't a game which is meant to be played with a mouse. It plays better on the Master System. And despite the incessant and well-deserved hammering of Sierra by the critics, the people loved them anyway. 4 of the American DOS top sellers, 4 of the 5 for Amiga, and 1 for Macintosh. Although codename Iceman was named one of the worst.
Many more years passed, and Daventry grew poor and weak. King Edward was old and feeble, and saw that his end was near. Fearing that the country would fall into even greater disorder when he died, he sent for his favorite knight, Sir Graham.
You are the bravest and truest knight in my kingdom, Sir Graham. Long ago, I envisioned your form in my magic mirror, and thought I was seeing my son and heir. The years have proven me at least half wrong, but the prophecy may yet be fulfilled. I command you to journey out into the world and retrieve the 3 great treasures taken from Daventry by treachery and stealth. Succeed in this great quest, and you shall become king upon my death.
And with that, my deep-seated and cavernous gratitude to Amiga Love, Stygian Phoenix, the Songstryss, PacBilly, FernLeafFlynn, AtWight, and the KilrGamer. Please check the description for links to my dear friends. As for the story, it's standard. Kingdom's in trouble. King needs stuff. Get stuff. Then you become king. Typical fairy tales. It's told rather well in the manual, though I must take exception to the utterly moronic King Edward. You do not deserve to be king, good sir, if all you care about is extending your reign. Nepotistic children, that's what we need more of, and so shall I let the kingdom burn to the ground over my superficial views on the meaning of life. It's just a game, and it's a good one. But at this particular moment in time, I refuse to romanticize inept, wannabe, tiny dictators who would make piss-poor kings. I'm Ahoy's Amiga user and a rare placement for Sierra among the 24 outstanding Amiga games. Though many of the puzzles are derived from fairy tales, there's nothing childish or watered down about them. Computer Gaming World never reviewed the original releases, even as they were all about the Apple II prior to 1985. But courtesy of Roy Wagner, they reviewed the first 3 as a trilogy on the Amiga. For an IBM PC or reasonable facsimile, this game is very well executed, but it is certainly at a much lower level than you have come to expect on the Amiga. From 1996, let me fix this for you, CGW. The 15 most influential industry players of all time. At number 2, over her husband, any day and every day, Roberta Williams. The original creative mind behind the Sierra product line, Roberta Williams, is only listed below Ken because we here at CGW are morons. Always stand with designers over salesmen. The fair Williams created the first graphic adventure and was one of the first designers to build a full adventure from a female perspective. It's hard enough to make a living in the gaming business. To add to the challenge, try being a woman in this obnoxious, overwhelmingly male-dominated business. But don't take that the wrong way. This has nothing to do with gender. Roberta Williams easily makes it into the CGW Hall of Fame by virtue of her talents and pioneering spirit alone. The 4th ever individual person inducted into the CGW Hall of Fame. We'll end on Electronic Games, December of '84. How about a shout out to the Downriver Commodore Group in Allen Park, Michigan. Don't be fooled by the unimaginative title. King's Quest is a major breakthrough in action-adventure games. The quest itself is clean-cut and simple, but its combination of keyboard and joystick blow everything away. You've never seen anything like King's Quest before on any system. It's a positive revelation on the PC Junior. Again, as a pure adventure, it would hardly be worth a second glance, but in simplifying the puzzle solving and Zoic-like elements and instead overwhelming the player with lush graphics and joystick control, the vistas of adventure gaming suddenly open to a whole new audience. Bill Kunkel. With the exception of any remarks about joysticks, that's the one which best complements my own sentiments. Opening the vistas of adventure gaming to a whole new audience. Historically, that's where King's Quest lies. Now, it was gonna happen anyway. Deja Vu came out not long after this. I kind of wish more had been inspired by the Mac Adventure games, as those retained wonderful text, whereas Sierra games did not. However, not only would Sierra continually pump out this style of adventure game, most others would as well. Many games owe massive debts of gratitude to both King's Quest and Roberta Williams. I have to reiterate that I think we're giving Sierra a little too much credit at times. Ken was a propaganda machine, which is putting it nicely. You can love while also thinking critically, and really in the end, how can you not have a reverence for King's Quest? Graham is one of the best gaming characters of all time. Whenever I cover a Sierra game, I end up loving them more, though my opinion of Ken tends to worsen. Few gaming accomplishments are more satisfying than winning a Sierra game with your mind. Everyone should play King's Quest. This means something. My thanks in order of appearance to Intric8. Find him at AmigaLove.com or on YouTube, making an occasional video on his passions.
There was a machine that learned to listen. Inside, the hardware translates frequencies into digital data. Vibrations become numbers, and from this exchange, the Amiga begins to visualize sound.
Longtime friend Stygian Phoenix, who drew my avatar as repayment for making me play Wheel of Fortune.
Is he gonna fall? Yes! Can I beat shot score? Yes, I can! What? Oh, crap!
A number of my videos over the last 5 years might not exist without Songstryss. Put succinctly, insightful discourse equates to boundless inspiration. The goal is to make them worthy of her schedule. The results are videos I will die proud of.
We are not going to disturb the rats, because like I said, that is rude.
Can't fight these, they're so small and annoying.
Stab, stab it, stab it, stab. What if penicillin were never invented? That's don't be a monster. What if the Mongols took over Europe? They kind of did. Oh, so sad. I'm stuck here. This is sad times.
Find PacBilly being both meticulously and effortlessly funny on YouTube or his new website, sammcdavid.substack.com.
I'm playing my favorite game of all time. Oh, look at this. We're fighting Hitler. No spoilers. Just pretend I never said any of that. Just pretend you didn't watch this.
FernLeafFlynn can be found on Twitch, where she reads from the manual upon starting a new game, and I also find her to be the definitive voice of Paperboy.
Can you not get your pants on, sir? That was kind of weird. I don't know why you would try to put your pants on out in the driveway.
AtWight can be found on Twitch playing survival horror and JRPGs, and also at InkRibbonChronicles.com, where she writes extremely personal articles on gaming.
That's cool. Like, alright, we got a gun. Ethan's got a gun. Hey, girl, what's up? Who's this motherfucker? I wanted Jill.
And finally, the KilrGamer can be found on YouTube, doing a little bit of everything.
Today I'm gonna go on an adventure. This is it. This is the road that I lived on.
Evan, you suck.
Yes, he does.
That's why you were the last one chosen for this adventure.
You're not gonna find yourself making many videos after 10 years unless you A, are making money. May that never occur here. Or B, you've found your people. Thank you all for making these 10, now 11 years worth it. cheers to 10 more. It would be my absolute pleasure to point you towards some other Sierra videos from my friends. Songstryss recently took a look at Sorcerian, an RPG translated by Sierra, and she did a full Let's Play of the delightful Pepper's Adventures in Time. You can watch Stygian attempting to beat my score in Quest for Glory, or my review as it was originally known as Hero's Quest. I'll see you soon. Goodbye.
So, Graham, why don't you eat some golden grahams?